By the time I met Tyler, I had already heard about him from several friends, both male and female, at the small liberal arts college I attended. He was strange, they said, very friendly but very physical. He would grab girls and pull them into his laps. And when they tried to get away, he would laugh and hold them tighter until one of our male friends forced them to stop. I made a mental note to avoid him. I was sitting in the school's cafe with one of my male friends who he knew when he approached and tried to grab me for the first time. I don't remember what the conversation was or how long we had been sitting near him, but when he reached for me, I instinctively pulled away. He grabbed me anyway and pulled me towards him, and when I told him to stop touching me, he began laughing. He didn't sexually assault me. His hands were on my arm, but when he laughed, his eyes were cold and humorless, and his grip on my arm tightened. I wrenched myself away and ran out of the cafe. When a concerned male friend caught up to me, I said, "There's something wrong with him. He's going to hurt someone." My friend walked me to Kmart, where I bought pepper spray. The second time Tyler tried to grab me, he approached a group of people I was standing with and tried to put his arm around me. I turned around and said, "Don't touch me. Don't touch any of my friends. We don't like it. You will make us uncomfortable." My voice carried and people turned to look. He looked shocked and his grip loosened. I left the cafeteria. He avoided me after that, and I thought that it was over until I went back to the dorm one night and found that none of my friends were there. When I texted them, they said they were in the school's gym and that I should come. At the gym, I found around 7 girls standing around with the school's dean. Tyler, I was told, had approached one of my friends in the gym, grabbed her by the hair, and forced her head towards his crotch. Every single one of the girls in the gym that day said that Tyler had, at one point or another, grabbed them and held on, refusing to stop touching them when they said no. None of them had reported it because he hadn't actually sexually assaulted them, he was just aggressive. But until that night, he hadn't crossed the line. The girls, including myself, all wrote down our experiences with him and gave our testimonies to the dean. Tyler was expelled. I never saw him again, and hopefully never will. This story is from quite a long time ago, the 1980s. At the time, I was in middle school in a suburb in Pennsylvania. One weekend, I had planned to sleep over at a friend's house. This would normally involve riding bikes around the neighborhood and playing Nintendo until very late. But this time when I arrived at my friend Brian, told me that he had to help out at his church. He said I could join and help too if I wanted, and having nothing else to do, I agreed. His family was very religious, and Brian was especially close to the pastor. Brian's mom dropped us off at the church, and we spent some time moving chairs around and helping to pack things up. Brian introduced me to Father Kane, who seemed friendly and asked me a lot of questions about my family and if I went to church. I told him that we didn't, and I remember being worried that he would react badly, but he seemed fine with it. Sometime later, it was getting near dinner time, and Father Kane asked if we could eat with him and then watch a movie. Brian seemed interested, and I thought why not, so he called his mom and postponed the time she would pick us up. We went to Father Kane's apartment, which was attached to part of the church, and ate some dinner together. He asked me if I wanted a drink, and when we went to his fridge, he handed me a beer. My parents had always allowed me to try alcohol if I wanted, and I would always think that it was disgusting, so I asked Father Kane for something else and he gave me a soda. Then after dinner, we watched the movie, The Shining. Later, Brian's mom picked us up and we went back to his house. I remember talking to Brian at the time and agreeing with him that Father Kane seemed very cool. A couple of months went by and one morning there was a big drama at school. Someone asked me if I had heard the news and why Brian was out of school that week. Father Kane had been charged with molesting altar boys and had fled. It turned out that Father Kane had groomed boys over many years and had been molesting them in that church apartment, giving them alcohol and cigarettes and eventually sharing them with 2 other priests. All were eventually charged and went to jail, though it took heavy action by the parents of the victims to make it happen, and many years until they were sentenced. 30 years later, and this is definitely one of the creepiest encounters I've ever had with someone. In hindsight, what's maybe the most worrying is how at that age there weren't any alarm bells ringing despite what seem now to be obvious red flags. I just thought he was a nice chilled out guy. We had been taught about stranger danger as kids, but he wasn't a stranger and was in a position of authority, so I didn't think to question his motives. Was a lesson to me how easily people with authority and respect in a community can get away with terrible things.